If you're selling your expertise with coaching or consulting, but getting burnt out producing content that's not generating the sales you want, or maybe you're scared to scale your ad spend because you're sitting at 1.5 or 2x ROAS, but other people are online making it look easy, right? Multiple 6-figure months, even 7-figure months, and you just can't work out what that gap is. That's probably understanding of psychology, the deeper psychology, the dark psychology that these guys are using. Each of them have their own unique technique, and that's what I'm breaking down in this video. This is the psychology behind why Charlie Morgan can make 8 figures a year, or Shelby Sapp even made 3 million in a single day. I'm going to be going into the technique, what it is, how it works, the examples, what's actually going on in your brain, and most importantly, how you can apply it to your own business. So let's start with Charlie Morgan and the technique that he uses, which is inadequacy stacking. This is positioning yourself as visibly above the viewer and making their reality really unpleasant and making them sit in that reality as well. His delivery makes a viewer feel inadequate by essentially holding up a mirror. He's so clear on how the person that's watching the video is experiencing life right now. He really understands that on a deep level. So he holds up that mirror and shows them exactly how their life is going. And they don't like that. And that's why that's the first part of the inadequacy stacking framework. He's also sharing what he's sacrificed and gone through and suffered through to actually get to where he is today. And people think, oh, I haven't done that, therefore I'm not worthy of this outcome. And then he's also demonstrating a higher level of education by the things that he references as well, where people think, okay, there's definitely a gap here. The examples of this from his actual content is, he says things like, right now in your life, you are parked at the inn. You are comfortable, you are complacent, you've lost sight of your goal. So people are going to resonate with that and they're going to see that in their own lives. He'll also say things like, money is the currency of suffering. And he also references like all of how he's well read basically. I think I must have spent 3,000 hours when I was like 17 or 18 just reading books. So how does this actually work in your brain? Well, your brain sees this threat to status and it releases cortisol at that point. When you're actually called out on the reality that you don't like, that is actually a status that's damaging to your status. And that's one of the things that our brain needs. It needs status in order to survive, and that's how we perceive it. So this cortisol, the stress hormone, actually gets released, and there's social pain that's registered. And the way that actually works in your brain is it actually works in the same way the physical pain is actually registered. But then Charlie Morgan will get you with some value delivery. He'll put you in this uncomfortable state, but then he's going to let you release dopamine in your brain because he's sharing value and showing you another path. Then you get this gap reduction drive, because you see this gap between who you are, the way you're experiencing life and the way he's experiencing life, or just simply the fact that he's held up this mirror, and it creates this drive inside you that you just can't suppress, and it creates that urgency. The prospect then scans for the fastest solution, and then you'll take action to alleviate pain. So you'll see, okay, there's a school community, it's free, I can jump in, just like 30,000 I think other people have. So how can you actually use it in your own coaching business? Well, you can tactfully criticize, and this is really important because you don't want to damage the ego here. You don't want people feeling called out like in a blunt way, or feeling defensive or anything like that, because then your message isn't going to land. You can describe an inadequacy with extreme precision rather than bluntly attacking. So if you were sharing some coaching around, let's say, UGC, for example, you can say, your UGC videos suck. Like, that's going to cause someone to step back and they're like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to hear from you. But you could say, are you fed up of continuously re-recording videos time after time after time? Your ring light's there, your ring light runs out of battery, and it just doesn't seem to land right. And even when you've pressed stop and you're happy with one, you watch it back and it sounds absolutely horrible. That's this tactful criticism there by describing your inadequacy. You can also raise status by sharing your sacrifice, what you've been through to actually get there, maybe the effort that you've put in, the blood, sweat and tears, the money that you've spent to get to where you are. And then once you create that discomfort, that's when you can position your offer and make that call to action. So that's inadequacy stacking and how Charlie Morgan uses it. Now let's get into Shelby Sapp. She does something slightly different. She does love bombing, and they almost feel opposites here. And this is interesting because it's actually the first step of creating a cult. It's where you overwhelm the new recruits with affection, make them love you, make them love being part of this community that you're creating, and that actually gets them open to making an identity shift. She actually comes across as that excited sister. She's hopping on FaceTime with you through her Instagram content. It feels like you're talking to her one-to-one, and that satisfies that human need for connection, and it makes the women that she's speaking with more open and more receptive to an identity shift. Identity shift. So she'll say things like this: I'm on a mission to prove to every single woman on the planet that they can do sales. It makes it feel genuine. It makes it like, oh, like we're in this together. Yeah. You have to trust that voice because it's in your head for a reason. This is where she's talking about different women feeling like, oh, maybe I'm destined for greatness. I'm destined for more than what I'm experiencing right now. And then the other thing I saw on her story the other day is that she just put a little text post where she had a question box. I'll be on my phone responding to messages for the next 2 to 3 hours because I'm bored. It makes you feel like she is just that person who's got your back. She's your excited sister, the one that wants the best for you. So how does that actually work? Well, when a viewer is flooded with affection, oxytocin is released. This is the bonding chemical that we have. Then I spelt it wrong here. Psychological guard lowers, not God lovers. And then she actually comes across as a trusted ally at this point. That means that the offer goes hand in hand with the relationship. I don't know what was going on with my spelling at this point. And then the purchase is actually loyalty to someone who loves you rather than just, oh, someone selling me a product. That's so important. When you feel like you're getting bought, so someone's buying a product because it's loyalty, because they love you, it's essentially buying in. This is how a cult works. People actually buy in because they feel love, they feel this sense of reciprocity. And it's not just, oh, I've given you this bit of value here. It's, I genuinely love you, I'm love bombing you right now, and then people are going to buy in as a result. So how can you use it? Well, you can use casual intimacy markers. There's things like love you. At the end of the video, I love you, I'm rooting for you. That's something that we'll get into later when we talk about Iman Gadzhi. I believe in you. And things like tag me as well. That's a powerful one. If you say to someone, oh, just tag me in your story, then you're like, oh wow, like we've got a relationship here. You can talk like you're speaking to a friend naturally. Introduce identity shifting after establishing a bond, and then make the purchase about joining the relationship and emphasize it around the relationship. We're in this together kind of thing. And then finally, sharing warmth before value. So that's Shelby Sapp, and one of the most powerful things that she's using. Now we've got Will Brown, another person from the UK, the I'm just a guy effect. And this is deliberately positioning yourself as ordinary in a space of the extraordinary. He's very softly spoken, he talks plainly, and he doesn't flex a huge amount, really. This naturally gives people a relief from the space that's saturated with a lot of hype and a lot of flexing. So he's just there, he's wearing the same thing, he does this deliberately in his brand, he's there with his coffee every time when he was making his video, when he was making his videos, before his thing got banned. So what's the examples from this? He always starts with, hey guys, it's Will. And he starts it with that same tonality, the same gentle, the softly spokenness of how he actually addresses his audience. He's also honest about things like, but I hated that business. He talks about the info business that he sold to private equity before, and he's honest and he's speaking plainly with the people. And then in his ads, he's saying something like, if you're this person, this person, this person, you're sitting on a 6-figure per month business. You just need the right model. And he just comes across as this regular person. And then this is the technique, the I'm just a guy effect. So how does it work? Well, your brain is scanning for the usual signs of sales. But then there are no signals that are actually found. And you basically see the opposite at this point. You see this regular guy, he's not He's not like this jacked guy, and he's kind of just sat there, just in a regular t-shirt, and maybe he's got like quite a nice background or something like that, and the camera quality's good. He's not looking like an absolute bum, but he's just looking like a regular person. This means that your threat response in your brain, it doesn't fire. So that means your guard stays down. Just like we spoke about with Shelby Sapp, it was about the fact that she's able to lower someone's guard, remove that level of reactance or resistance to making an offer because of the technique that you're actually lowering the guard, but they're just going about it in different ways. This means that claims are processed then as facts. He'll say, I've made 500,000 this month or something like that, and he'll essentially mention it in quite a dismissive way, kind of just like it's a regular fact. So the fact that someone's guard has stayed down, they're like, oh, I'm actually willing to trust Will. That means the credibility is just going to accumulate because people are trusting the facts that he's actually sharing. So how can you use it as well? Well, you can do it by removing performance or removing flexing or these status symbols or anything like that, and coming across as just more unassuming. You can let the contrast work for you. So the fact that maybe in the trading space, for example, that's got a lot of people flexing. So you going about things in a different way, just coming across as a regular guy, that's going to be something that will actually help you a lot, because there's a big contrast between what someone expects and what they actually experience. This means that their brain can actually pay attention more, and then also feel like the guard is lowered, and also essentially trust you more. Contrast works in many different ways. For example, I've got quite a young looking face, but I've got quite a deep voice. So if you've not heard me speak before and you opened up this video, then you're like, oh, that's a contrast there, and it's probably made you lean into the hook, for example. So it can work in many, many different ways. And then you can also casually mention your biggest results as well. It's not like, oh, I made 3 million in a day, like just what Shelby Sapp in her video, for example. She was getting interviewed, and then she was like, I think the question was, it was like, what's the most amount of money you've made in a month or something like that? And she was like, shall we talk about a day? $3 million. And like, that's the opposite of the kind of approach that you would take if you're going for the just the guy effect, or just a girl. So that's that one. Let's get into the next one. And this is another Brit. They're well represented here. We've got James Smith, and his approach is actually somewhat similar, but we've got some other things here. And if you've not come across James Smith, he originally had a fitness background and then kind of went more into coaching people in the fitness space, and then also maybe coaching some coaches in the fitness space as well. And now he's just got this smaller business channel where he talks to people about their online business. And I call this one Weaponized Vulnerability, and it really gives it a very sinister tone. But this is the best way I could actually phrase it. So he's lowering the guard once again of your prospects by admitting to damaging truths. And this can actually be one of the most manipulative techniques, because it can't really be called out without the prospect looking paranoid. So James Smith is going to admit these damaging truths about, okay, how he feels about the business, maybe how the business is going. People aren't really anticipating someone to be that truthful, I suppose, in a position of authority like James Smith is. But he's got this contrast again, like we've got with Will Brown, but he's just using this vulnerability to his advantage. And I don't mean to say that he's using it in a sinister way, but it can be, in the wrong hands, it can be one of the most negatively manipulative techniques, because it's difficult to call out without someone looking paranoid. It's difficult to detect. And I said that twice. It was something else. What was I going to say? That was it. It's a shortcut to building trust. So you might have even heard this in some sales training or something like that. But if you can admit something that is potentially damaging to yourself, then people lean in very, very, very quickly to trusting you. So that's why it's one of the most manipulative ones. The examples of what he says is, this is a video sales letter. It's designed to sell you. And he'll also say, I'll be honest, I don't actually pocket much of that when he's talking about his revenue. And he goes into all of his expenses when people won't really expect that. And he'll also say, I appreciate there are a lot of bellends online talking about making money. So he's going to call out the space that he's in. So how does it actually work in the brain? Well, the brain, again, is detecting a potential threat, but then the confession, that interrupts that threat signal. So when he's about to talk about his credibility, what he's been able to achieve, but then he makes a confession related to that, then that actually interrupts that signal, and then the brain releases that oxytocin, that bonding chemical that we talked about with Shelby Sapp, and people actually then bond to him. Then that suppresses your ability to think critically once the brain releases that oxytocin. Then your confirmation bias kicks in. So then you're like, oh, okay, so this person's being truthful. So therefore I perceive this person as a truthful person. So then you've essentially just put some glasses on where you see that person through those glasses of someone who is truthful. Therefore, the prospect trusts the solution. So how can you use it? You can use it through self-deprecating jokes, honesty about your numbers, revealing true desires behind why you do what you do, admitting failures, showing poor results, talking good about your competitors, and naming the prospect's risk and making it super clear for them. All of this is going into vulnerability, and the critical thing here is that the prospect needs to believe that you could actually stand to lose actually rather than gain as a result of you sharing one of these points. So if they believe that you've actually exposed yourself to potential loss, that's when it works. If they don't believe that you could actually lose something by admitting one of these things or revealing or sharing one of these things, then it's not really true vulnerability, and they're not actually going to have this response in their brain. So we've got two more very, very interesting ones in Myron Golden and Iman Gadzhi. We have borrowed omnipotence, and this is a really interesting one. This is getting buy-in by linking claims to existing deep-rooted beliefs that someone has. So if you've ever watched content by Myron Golden, interviews, podcasts, whatever it may be, he links so many of his business claims to God. This means that questioning him is questioning the source of their shared beliefs. So naturally, most of the people following him or buying from him are going to be Christians. So by linking his claims to God, people aren't going to be questioning that belief or that idea that he's actually shared. It doesn't just have to be religion, though. Coaches can also use borrowed omnipotence by referencing science, maths, history, and philosophy as well. You'll also see this quite a lot in Charlie Morgan's content. He'll mention things from philosophy, the philosophers that he studied. So it's not my claim, it's their claim. The examples of how he uses it, Myron Golden, money is a tool for expansion of the kingdom. He'll keep saying things like that. He'll also mention scripture. If one will chase 1,000, two will put 10,000 to flight. If I move that into a wealth arena, if one person can make $1,000, two people can make 10,000. And then he's also said in another video, Satan is a monster of making people think good is bad and bad is good. Satan knows he cannot block your blessing, so he mentally blocks you from the blessing. And that's essentially, this is essentially what you can use as a frame if the people following you believe in God when they have fear around investing in your product. And you can just label it as Satan. Like, that is so powerful. And in the wrong hands, this can be terrible. And what was it? I was watching Knives Out, the latest one, where essentially you see this in practice, how there's a pretty damaging cult, effectively, in the name of God, and you can't question the beliefs, you can't question the recommendations, what the person is telling you to do, because by doing that, you're questioning God. So how does it actually work? The creator identifies what the audience believes. Then they introduce the concept. Then the brain is looking for reasons that idea, that new thing, is unsafe. But then the creator introduces this trusted anchor in God, in philosophy, in history, in science, whatever it may be. Then the prefrontal cortex would reduce scrutiny, and then the prospect is going to accept the concept. So how can you use it? Well, you can identify what your audience believes is absolute truth about themselves or about the world, You then state your claim as you're teaching something, then you attach the claim to what they already believe, and then you don't claim it as yours. You essentially say, well, this is God. This is God speaking, or this is truth from hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, or something like that. And let's get into the final one with Iman Gadzhi. He positions himself as the proud authority, and this is the technique, the psychological technique that he's using. He's assigning the viewer a flattering identity, so actions fall in alignment with it. So he delivers content like a proud, big brother, really. He's got quite a young audience. He's quite young himself, I believe. He's even younger than me. And someone the viewer wants to make proud in that case. He then validates who you already are, and assigns you that identity that you actually want yourself. By doing this, it creates accountability, and the viewer acts in alignment with who Iman thinks I am. Examples of this is, if you clicked on this video, it's because you know you have a ton of potential. You're bright, you're ambitious, and you know that you're meant for more. And congratulations for not having the attention span of a goldfish like most people nowadays. You're exactly the kind of person that I make these videos for. Imagine if you're seeking validation from Iman Gadzhi at this point, and you hear something like that. That's going to get you to lean in. You're like, oh, he thinks I'm great. He thinks I'm this person. And then finally, like I promised before, he's also got this kind of manufactured intimacy at scale, saying at the end of his videos, as always, I'm watching from afar and I'm rooting for you. So how does this work in your brain? Identity is assigned, then your brain accepts that identity because it's a positive identity, and then it becomes part of your self-image, is how you see yourself. Your brain is going to avoid at all costs cognitive dissonance. I believe as someone who follows through on my word, for example. So therefore, if I tell a client or someone I'm working with or a teammate or whatever it may be that I'm going to do something, I always do that thing. That's something I pride myself in. I can't not follow through on what I say I'm going to do because of this cognitive dissonance, because that is part of my own self-image. And there'll be other things on my own self-image where my brain is going to avoid cognitive dissonance, probably negative things as well. Then the prospect will act in alignment with that image, and then they'll stay engaged and they'll take advice as a result. So how can you use it? You can name the identity that the viewers want to have. Then you can reward micro actions through praise. And then you frame the next step as, this is for identity. So this, if you're making a call to action, for example, and maybe I'll just do it as a call to action for this video. So if you're watching this video right now, you're probably a coach who really believes that they can help people at scale. And me personally, I only work with coaches that have good products and actually want to grow their business. So if that is the kind of person that you want to actually partner with, then feel free to scroll down, click the link in the description of this video, and then you can find a time to talk with me. So you see there, by making my own call to action, I'm essentially tapping into people's morals. You're a coach who really wants to do good work for who you want to work with. Those are the people that I want to work with myself, and that's how I actually partner with coaches that I work with on what I do. So by me saying, if you're a coach who actually does good work and just wants to make that available to more people, then go ahead and we can work together. So I've really enjoyed making this video. I'll be completely honest with you. What I do want to say is, whichever one you select, or a combination of them, or whatever it may be, whichever one is probably going to be relevant to your personality. So don't force love bombing on yourself if it doesn't really feel genuine, because that's just going to come across as weird. So depending on who you are, you can probably tap into one of these, or maybe a combination of the two of them, and then make your own kind of deeper level of psychology and use that to actually improve the results of your content, the ads, and all of the other sales assets that you have. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll catch you then.